all, for the organizers for arranging this wonderful event. And what's just happened reminded me of an instance that I remember that happened in the mid-80s in Punjab. That a train is about to leave the platform in Patiala, and there's a Congress politician on top of it at the door, and there are people trying to catch that. So horde of people who'd along with the so they're like running, and the train is about to leave the platform, and they're like, "To josh mein aa gaye, bole Sonihal, this that, pura piche chad rahe." And the train almost departs from the platform, and like these 10-15 people jump on to the train, and they're like basically breathing heavily, and then passengers congratulate them for kamal ho gaya. Then they said, "Are asi to chhadda na aisi." So they had come to drop the politician, Josh mein aake. So I had just come to listen to Major Gaurav Arya and a few wonderful personalities. And as it happens, I'm now, I have the pleasure of being on the dais. But it is a pleasure because Shazia is one of those really wonderful people. I've had the pleasure of interviewing her when she was in the Aam Aadmi Party.
That's right.
Yes. And then sense prevailed and she quit AAP. But I had the honor of interviewing her in her house where she had Che Guevara coasters and Che...
That's right. Oh my God, you remember.
Let me ask her, ab kaun sa coaster hai aapke paas?
Che Guevara? Swami Vivekanand.
But to come back to the theme, and I think it's a very serious theme, and I think it's wonderful that we have Shazia here, because, and as the theme suggests, this is about busting myths. So the first thing that I would like Shazia to clarify, I think there's a lot of confusion about what has transpired in the last 1 month, 1.5 months, and also the clarification that was given by Prime Minister.
Yes.
As to how so many people were comparing what was going on in the Shabrimala judgment and the aftermath to the triple talak.
That's right.
So Shazia, could you please clear the air on that they are really, as what the Prime Minister said, different? If not, why not? What's the...
So first of all, Assalamu alaikum and Namaskar. And I feel happy to be able to say both. And the real problem with trying to debunk myths about BJP and RSS is something we all encounter day after day. We have to go around telling people that we in the BJP or in the RSS or the Hinduwadis or believers of Hindutva are not really evil, Muslim-hating marauders plundering the spirit of the idea and the idea of India. We are just regular folks who are nationalistic, who believe in a cause larger than ourselves, and so be it. My task becomes more arduous, Anand, because I'm a Muslim. And yeah, no guesses there. My name is Shazia Ilmi. I was born to Islamic faith, and I'm in the BJP. And that too, I'm a Sunni. Now that's important, because Shias are supposed to be sympathetic to BJP, whether it's a Ram Mandir issue or the triple talak issue. So my task becomes more and more tougher. And then, having been a co-founder and a co-creator of AAP, having left them to join BJP a year later, I'm vilified and demonized even more because I am the ultimate traitor, the Judas. And then having belonged to media once upon a time, the same left liberal media, the media which espouses all the virtues, all the lovely epitomes of, piety that we see around there. Having belonged to that club, I have literally, walked out of that citadel, so to speak, and decided to join BJP with full conviction and with complete passion and my integrity intact. And that's something that most people cannot bear or take. And this vilification started much earlier. It did not just happen, and it's not only now that journalists and fellow Muslims, and much less of fellow Muslims.
Shazia, sorry, we'll come to all of that.
Yes.
The question was on triple talak.
No, I know. I just was building up to. Okay,
you're stealing my questions.
Oh,
but
okay.
so I have.
So first of all, on triple talak, now this is a pernicious practice. This practice finds no place in Quran Sharif whatsoever. So here are a bunch of Maulanas, and I do not want to say anything against Maulanas. I'm a daughter of a Maulana, Ishaq Ilmi Sahab, and from Deoband, and Ilmi Khitab was given only to 2 people in Deoband, and Abba was one of them. So I tried to live up to, woefully short of the same, to be an Ilmi myself. So I'm a daughter of a Maulana, and I don't want to vilify. But here in Triple Talaq, we saw the most obnoxious kind of politics prevail. Not just the Congress party or the secular parties, but All India Muslim Law Board and countless Muslims and the lovely left-leaning feminist leaders that we have on the other side chose the side of the patriarchal men, bigoted and feudal and cruel, than on the side of the Constitution or Quran itself and women, which should have been there. So it is shameful that it was BJP which was acting in the interest of not just the women who actually had gone to court, like Shaira Bano and countless others, but BJP was on the right side of humanity and the Constitution and gender equity, but also on the right side of Quran. So there were Maulanas in our country and backed by All India Muslim Personal Law Board, which is a self-appointed body of Islamic scholars, so to speak, heads of Islamic jurisprudence, who were ready to go against the word of Quran. Just so BJP is not able to provide a legal statutory provision, some kind of instrument for their own dignity and safety to safeguard their interests in a broken marriage. So it is shocking what has happened, and it has made my resolve even firmer. And it was, and now when you heard the Prime Minister talk about Shabrimala, and a lot of people do make comparisons and talk about that, and what he said clearly was that the Supreme Court hearing preceded the ordinance, which could, in Shabrimala and in Triple Talaq, which could not be done in the case of Ram Mandir, which I thought was a very, not just a cautious, but a very responsible statement coming from the chief executive officer, so to speak, of a country, you know. So, I salute him for that. But having said that, you know, Triple Talaq is not a matter of religion. It is talaq-e-biddat. What we are fighting is talaq-e-biddat. Talaq-e-biddat is not part of Islam. Otherwise, the Muslim countries would have it. It is not prescribed in the Quran. Quran has a prescribed way of pronouncing talaq through talaq-e-hasan and ehsan. And anybody who claims to have read Quran with tarjuma would know this, you see, if tarjuma as in translation. So I think a huge game and a very mischievous game was played, and it is totally devious that we can never, I will always have such issues with Congress on this, because we saw what happened with Shabano case. A lot of us are very young, but it really threw women in an era of darkness. And this was something progressive that was waiting to happen. And I saw the absolute silence of a certain section of media who claim to be progressive.
So where do you stand on the Shabrimala case?
So where Shabrimala is concerned, I think I'm totally with the Supreme Court judgment when it comes to gender equality. But I feel that a lot of women there and men also have a huge problem accepting that. And I feel that, you know, when it comes to Triple Talaq and women drawing the economic sustenance and the basic livelihood, and them being deprived because of a pernicious practice, to comparing them with an entry into a temple. So I see a huge difference of magnitude. They both are issues of gender equity, mind you. And I'm not running away from the answer of playing smart at all. But I do see that there is a huge difference. Both are about gender equity. But one is clearly about a basic life of dignity and well-being of a family, of a Muslim woman and her children, as compared to, yes, an entry, which itself is very symbolic and important. So where that is concerned, in fact, I do not speak on that issue because I am on the side of the Supreme Court.
Right. So let me ask you two hypotheticals, principally because I don't see you as a politician. You're frank and honest and erudite.
So I'll never really be a great politician.
Yes,
I'm happy with that.
Yeah. So the first question is, you quite rightly said that the Triple Talaq is not sanctioned in the Quran.
Yes.
My question to you is, would you still be for abolition of it, were it to be sanctioned in the Quran?
You know, we in India live in a democracy. Now, we know that Islam is the second largest religion in the world. So Muslims live in theocratic states and Muslims live in democracies. Muslims in the US, Muslims in the UK, Muslims in all of the democracies follow the rule of the land. There is no issue. Muslims in India follow the Indian Penal Code when it comes to civil disputes. Muslims in India have to follow the CRPC when it comes to the criminal matters. So I don't understand why on earth can we not follow a very just and an equitable law, even if it goes against the tenets of your religion, just like you do in every other matter when it comes to religion.
Fantastic. That's fantastic.
I mean, Muslims have a problem with this aspect. By that logic, all the Muslims should be asking for Sharia. Why aren't Muslims going out on streets in India right now, and who believe in, who are true believers, and saying, no, down with Indian Penal Code, down with CRPC, down with Constitution, we want a Sharia. They have lived to be in this country, embrace the democracy and the rule of land. So if it's a property dispute, a civil dispute, a criminal matter, they follow the law of land. But when it comes to talak, when it comes to succession, when it comes to legacy, when it comes to giving any rights to your children or your daughters, you suddenly want to follow, not even Quran in this matter. I mean, I don't know what you want to follow. So I'm very, very clear on that. And my identity remains that of an Indian, that of a woman, that of a Muslim. I wear all these identities with great pride. I do not want to become an anti-Muslim BJP member. I'm very much married to my faith, and I'm happy in my faith. And I would defend my Muslim brothers and sisters, but I would equally defend my Hindu brothers and Sikh brothers and sisters as and when the need arose. Because that's me as an Indian. That's how I grew up.
Right, thanks very much. And I think that's very heartening for you being, really frank, and really admirable. The second hypothetical is now, as you know, you were
Why did you choose him as a person to interview? My God.
You were one of the proponents, in fact, vociferous proponents of that in the Shah Bano case, the Supreme Court judgment should not have been overturned. You were one of the very prominent ones at the time you were in the media. So the hypothetical is...
No, I was very, very, very young there, but my family, Arif
later
Muhammad Khan was the protagonist, but for years...
absolutely.
And as a kid in the belonging to that family, one suffered.
And quite rightly. So the next hypothetical is, say the Supreme Court judgment on the Ram Mandir case comes, and the Supreme Court is against the building of the Ram Mandir there. Would you support the BJP overturning the Supreme Court ordinance?
I'm not quite sure about what my answer is. I really haven't thought about it. I really think that the Prime Minister has done a very correct thing by not falling into this whole bait of the ordinance that is being talked about, by continuing to believe in the rule of law. It shows us as a responsible country led by a very responsible statesman. But if that were to happen, I'm sure there would be a need for appeals, and just like is happening in Shabrimala, because there's been such an outpouring and rejection, and in the case of Jallikattu, that is difficult to contain. So if you can't contain the situation, and a Supreme Court verdict goes against a larger sentiment of an entire country, I think the Supreme Court would be forced to reconsider if it were to have a decision not favoring the Ram Temple at all. So there are many factors here. You can follow something totally technically and legally, and you have to go with what faith is, what people believe in, what makes us you and me. So much as I go by the empirical evidence, but so much of me as a person is governed by my own biases, by my own choices, by my own likes and dislikes. And all of us as human beings contain those paradoxes. It does not make us illiberal or small-minded or unscientific or disrespectful if we want to believe in going to a dargah to pray or having our own Ram temple. And let me turn this argument around. Can you imagine in the Vatican or even in the holy city of Kaaba, any such discussion even taking place? So isn't it very unfair that even the Supreme Court would want of this country, of this huge democracy, would want to deny the majority of its people a huge temple dedicated to Lord Ram? So I can't see that. Can you even think about, mosques are changed every day in UAE if you go, in Jordan, and I've traveled a lot, the length and breadth of the Arab world besides other places. Mosque, if there is a mosque in the way of a big highway, whether it's UAE or it's Jordan, it's shifted. So Babri Masjid can be shifted, but birthplace of Ram, and some people might not have faith in that, some people might think it's kalpanik or imaginary, but for most Indians who have faith, can you expect them not to have a place? Can you ask any, and when I give this argument to my fellow Muslims on Kaaba Sharif, on the Masjid of Makkah or Al-Aqsa, will they even hear of it? So I think it's very unfair to test constantly the sensibilities of my Hindu brothers and sisters on this one. I think it's very cruel almost. And I would really implore the Supreme Court also not to do it.
Right, no more
Yeah.
hypotheticals.
Thank God for that.
In fact, no, let's go back to the time when you were you were in the media, you were a journalist. And not
Yes.
many people may know this, but Shazia was the first one to expose Mr. Digvijay Singh's the so-called
Yeah.
conspiracy that the 2611 was RSS ki sajish.
Yeah.
She was the one who actually, so before I pose to you the question, I would like you to frame in your mind as to the circumstances that led you to do that bit of investigative reporting.
Yes.
And the question is, why do people like Digvijay Singh or, that the kind of, as it is a common phrase to use the phrase, Lutyens cabal, get such a free press when you make such incendiary conspiratorial arguments that something like 2611 was a conspiracy hatched by the RSS?
Yes, Digvijay Singh, backed by Aziz Barni, and who later had to apologize, actually made up the story about Hemant Karkare because he was championing the cause of Muslims, that he was actually shot at by the Hindutva, people of Hindutva mindset. And there are many such theories that abound. But believe you me, 3 days of 2611, I was a correspondent and an anchor of Star News. And I happened to go to Bombay Hospital, and everybody was covering the commandos and all the whatever was going on, and I had covered the Mumbai terror attacks. Somebody just told me, because I was an anchor and they recognized me, and I happened to go to the ward where Arun Jadhav, they called him the pilot, the operators, they drive the jeep, or Vijay Salaskar. And thanks to that interview, I mean, nobody even knew who he was, but somebody recognized me and said it's a good story. So the story came out for the first time, where Arun Jadhav told the world as to how Karkare ji, Kamte ji, and Salaskar ji were killed. And there was this whole thing made up, and I wrote about it extensively and did a lot of public meetings on the subject.
Did you get a chance to interview Digvijay Singh and kind of accost him with this?
No, Digvijay Singh met me for many years during the Anna Hazare movement, and not just Digvijay Singh. So many, not just Congress leaders, and I don't begrudge them that. They are in the Congress party. This is their job. It is politics. It is real politics and not idealism. So give them that. I do not blame him. But I'm talking about the likes of the so-called intelligentsia. All the wonderful people who speak for Congress, for corruption, for Bofors, who are ready to immerse in this visceral hatred against Modi ji day after day, day after day. मुसलसल तौर पर उनका बस जिंदगी का ही मकसद हो गया है कि हम कैसे सुबह उठें और मोदी जी को गालियां बकें. So this is so terrifying and terrible for me that somewhere the pursuit of truth and objectivity is not there. While I can see, being a member of the BJP and earlier of AAP, the fault lines, the gaps that are sometimes between a reasoning and logic and what we are saying, and to be self-critical, and I have been self-critical and critical of my party too, I do not see a shred of objectivity in the way a huge section of journalists behave and conduct themselves. It was them who constantly, Digvijay Singh kept telling me, kahan Anna Hazare movement, and do you know how evil he is, how evil Kejriwal is, and whatever. But there was a bunch, and these are the most important, who you and I would consider the most important liberal journalists of our country. All of them went and told me, why are you fighting with them? You are speaking against UPA 2 corruption, but do you realize that Anna Hazare movement is RSS sponsored, RSS funded, RSS motivated? And I said, yeah, even if it is, it doesn't matter to me, because we're fighting the corruption of UPA too. And we're fighting for our country and for its resources and for transparency and better systems and better governance. And that logic did not work. And they were shocked even then that why I, as a Muslim, would do that. And their messages, and Tisa Sitalwad and all were aghast, because I had worked with them earlier, that how could you do this to us? And I said, but aren't you against corruption? Doesn't corruption impact all of us all? When there is a medical scam happening in UP, where chief medical officers are killed during Mayawati's time, aren't the poor deprived of medicines? And you yourself say that Muslims are most economically backward. So what are you talking about? I didn't get it. You see, I never got it. Only because I questioned. As a journalist, I was asked to interview Shri Ravi Shankar, it became such a beautiful interview that Shri ji only wanted me to interview. Please Google sometimes on Star News and Shri, and I went all over to Argentina and Patagonia and everywhere interviewing him. If you look at...
You interviewed him live?
Yeah, live.
No, because one of your colleagues, Sagarika Ghosh, had that thing where he
and
was
whether it's Sadhguru, so you know, it's about having an open, and I've never felt uncomfortable. I've never felt these horrible godmen, this Hindutva peddling people. I don't know where this comes from. It is such an unfair hatred, and they haven't even bothered to find out. So my only appeal to all of them is, get to know. You have a problem with RSS? Have you met any of them? And my interaction with RSS, I'll tell you. I was in Z News, and Z News has a certain politics of its own, you know, and we all know that, and I'm not getting into that because it could be on television. I was a young cub reporter from Jamia Masscom, and they said, I wanted to cover, and they were giving me all the things like lifestyle. I said, no, I want to cover politics. I'm made for that. I was this 22-year-old crazy girl at that point of time. I continue to remain crazy, and I'm proud of it. Anyway, and I said, they said you can't cover BJP. And I said, why not? I'm curious about BJP. Let me cover BJP. And they would not let me because there was this bias, me being Muslim. So when they saw Shazia Ilmi, I was a Muslim. I could not. And you know what happened? I would go to the BJP office. They were like any other party. If at all, they were slightly kinder and nicer. And as a kid, and I made friends with then Kushabhau Thackeray, who was this very sweet man who reminded me of my dad because he had this kurta pajama, dhila dhala, he used to be there. And I said, "Aap log aise kyun hain?" And I would ask these very innocent, mad questions. "Aap log kya Musalmanon ko hate karte hain? Kyun karte hain aap log? Bahut galat baat hai." And he would sit me, I mean, it was like that. So sometimes innocence helps.
Just to add, you know.
And you know, that openness helps.
Yeah.
And once you get to know them, then I met another very senior RSS functionary, and I will not tell you his name. And I started talking to him, and I expected him to talk about sanskar and Bharat and, you know, tilak and sindoor and sari. And this is the impression they've created, you know. I mean, I'm exaggerating. You know, but we spoke about Meena Kumari. And he was a huge, ardent fan of Meena Kumari. He knew the poetry, the shairi of Meena Kumari, which I can tell you is very sakht Urdu. It's not regular spoken Urdu. It's just brilliant. Read Meena Kumari's shairi. And Kamal Umrui and all were her fans, and there were people would steal her poetry. It was so shaista and muhazzab. So this is a conversation I have with an RSS senior.
So, Shazia, here's the
I'm
question.
debunking the myths. Can
Right.
you see that? And for myself, because I made an effort to do it.
Yeah, so RSS, as you know, I mean, if you go to their website and their preamble, it's a Hindu organization working
Yes.
for interests of the Hindus.
Yes.
But it does have a Muslim wing. RSS
Yes.
has a Muslim wing. But do you foresee, you know, any time in the future where they might change their quote-unquote constitution and you could see a Muslim man or a woman becoming the chief of RSS?
You know, I think all fears
And
and doubts were set to rest when Mohan Bhagwat ji very clearly talked about who is a Hindu. And when he talked about a Hindu, it almost becomes a paryayavachi or a synonym for an Indian. And he said, for lack of another word, if you remember that speech. And he says, even if you don't like your name, but this is it. And anybody who denounces Muslims and in India and calls them non-Hindus or non-Indians are guilty, because there is no such thing. By virtue of being in India, you are an Indian and a Hindu. So, and I think that is such a generous definition. So I'm happy to be part of the larger Hindu family, and I continue to remain a Muslim. And what's wrong with that?
Yeah. So you see yourself as a cultural Hindu?
No, I'm a cultural Muslim. I'm a cultural many things. You know, when the triple talak debate was going on, and the kind of vilification and ugly things some of us had to hear, and I'll confess, some of them were so ugly that I actually used to go back home and cry. I mean, not go back home, but because I was home when the interviews were going on. And my brother and my nieces here, they would have to calm me down and say, don't feel bad, things like that get said. And you know, there's a gentleman, Maulana Sajid Rashidi, who took out a picture of me playing Holi in the BJP office and said, this is not a real Muslim because she plays Holi. So it's so unfair to be asked this question, what you are culturally. Because I love my Eid and I love my Sivai, and I love Holi, and because it's raucous and mad, and I love Diwali but without the crackers. So I don't know what that makes me, but this is who I am, and I don't see any dissonance and any friction in them. And I find it so sad. I mean, Ramachandra Guha, this fantastic, brilliant...
Who, sorry? Who? I don't know him.
Guha?
Okay.
Mr. Guha, because Anna Hazare movement was considered so against Congress and therefore helping the BJP, wrote terrible things like everyone else. All the editorials were against. And then he wrote a piece that now Anna Hazare movement has an articulate Muslim woman. So it was a compliment. I should have taken the articulate part of it. But I really took offense to Muslim because I know my identity. You don't have to keep telling me I'm a Muslim. Yeah, I am. So, but I'm just exposing to you how the mindset of these so-called progressive liberal minds, how they are, what is inside of them. They're continuing to divide you all the time and perpetuate your identity as that of a Muslim and a Muslim alone. But, you know, there is nothing Indian or civilizational about it. The whole ethos, so that's why culturally, maybe a lot of men and women in Saudi Arabia would not accept me as a true Muslim because I have gone to temples. They would have a huge problem. But here I am. I mean, call me a mongrel or what you. No. But I love my Diwali and I love my Eid and I love my Bakri Eid and I love my Christmas too. And nobody can begrudge me that. Even the most right-winged, I mean, that's a terrible word to use. Sorry, I said that. I take it back because it just shows my intellectual bankruptcy when I use that. But the most rigid of the RSS, but you know, to their chagrin, I would continue to say that I love Christmas. You know, I can't help it. Right, I cannot lie about it.
We're running out of time, so I think the last question, I'd really like to put you on the spot because this is about breaking myths. So I'd like this myth to be broken by you. And bear with me because I have got some data. Yes. And the question that I put to you is for you to break this myth. Yes. I don't know whether it's myth or a reality, is that BJP has a Muslim problem. Now let me give you the data. Indian general election 2014, Muslim population of India 14.2%, Muslim BJP candidates 7 out of 482, 1.4%, BJP MPs 282, Muslim BJP MPs 0%. West Bengal 2016 assembly elections, Muslim population 27% of West Bengal.
I can answer that.
No, let me finish the data and then I'll leave you. Muslim population of West Bengal 27%, Muslim BJP candidates 5 out of 287, 1.7%, Muslim BJP MLAs 0%. Okay. UP assembly elections, Muslim population 19.3%, Muslim BJP candidates 0 out of 370, 0%. Muslim BJP MLAs 0%. Goa assembly election.
I can give an answer.
Just last. Goa. Christian population.
The answer would remain the same.
No, Christian population 26.5%. Christian BJP candidates 9 out of 36, 25%. BJP MLAs 13. Christian BJP MLAs 53%.
Okay,
can I answer that's now? The question.
Well, of course, and it's a very important question. But have you also found out from the people who were looking at this data as to how many Muslim members are there in the BJP at the national level and all the states?
No, don't skirt the issue.
No, I'm not skirting.
We are talking about empowering...
Muslims, I'm here to, as a Muslim...
No, I just gave you the example of Goa.
Let me finish. Yeah. Let me finish. Yeah. So, Muslims for the longest period of time have disliked, and this is exactly my point, have disliked, they would vote for anybody but BJP, has been the mindset. In fact, there are khutbahs given in several mosques, and I know about it because I have friends and family.
So there is an element of reciprocity?
No, there isn't. But you have to be part of a party to even seek a ticket. In Gujarat, only the last municipal polls, and please get the figures for that now, please do it quickly. Civil polls in Gujarat, Muslims. Right. No, please do it quickly. Civic and municipal polls in Gujarat, how many Muslim members fought and won from the BJP ticket? Because they embraced BJP, got in and it became yet another party for them.
So what happens at assembly, what happens at the national level?
That's what I'm saying, because Muslims have been given this Mughli Ghutti, 555, that BJP is against you, that it is, let's fear the RSS, that is the entire
and Christians
thing.
Aren't?
No, this is the entire thing, and because also, and I'll be very honest here, because for years and years there has been a certain kind of an appeasement in our country. Because Congress has pandered to the same Muslim vote bank in a certain way, and only to the vote bank, not to Muslims per se, and the socio-economic reasons. That Muslims would fear to enter BJP, and in that sense they've consolidated that. So it's also important for BJP as a party reach out other sections that are not being wooed by Congress, which is regular Hindus. So if they can ask for Muslim votes, why can't BJP ask for Hindu votes? If they are every party there, Samajwadi, RLD, SP, Congress, dying to give tickets to Muslim candidates, why should Hindu candidates have an advantage, at least in the BJP?
Yeah, but
I think that's very unfair. That's democracy,
sure.
isn't it?
Yeah, you're right. But
I mean, I see nothing wrong with that.
The question was, is two-pronged. Let me
I mean,
rephrase
people
it.
can't ask me, Muslims can't ask me, why the hell are you in BJP? You're a traitor. And then say, oh, why am I not getting a ticket in your party? Tell me, is it fair?
Now, you see, you're right, because
I mean, I don't get this.
No, as long as Muslims don't vote for the BJP, I suppose there'll be an element of, all right, you're not going to vote, we're not going to have Muslim MPs and MLAs. So clearly there is a difference between Christian and Muslims here, as I've given you the example.
Yes.
But we are talking of, because you're a politician,
Yes.
Shazia, and you're here for the long run, you're going to reform the BJP. So here is a question where I want you to tell me, just wait for the question. The question is coming.
I must say one thing.
The question is coming.
As a woman, I want to say this.
Okay.
BJP is the most comfortable place to be in. They have accorded me the highest respect. I have never, and I've asked this question, how could you join BJP? How do they treat you? I mean, people actually think that I'm forced to do some puja, archana and idol worship. I don't know what is the impression. And these are very intelligent. No, but I'm telling you that I have...
Anecdotal example of you and the chosen 3 or 4. I'm talking of real data. When you have 400 MLAs and not one of them is a Muslim, when you have 500 candidates and not one of them is a Muslim.
I would rather
Why is that?
No, because you're also going by the sheer identity and the nomenclature. I would rather have 400 MLAs speaking about Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas.
That's a stock
then,
apply.
No, it is not. Then having 200 MLAs who are Muslims and 200 of other Yadavs maybe, talking about minority appeasement and indulging in corruption. So I would rather, whether you're a Hindu or a Muslim, you believe in your dharma as an Indian and conduct yourself with integrity. I do not think that being a Muslim is good enough. Handsome is what handsome does, Anand. I'm telling you, it did not help the cause of women to have Benazir Bhutto as the Prime Minister. So I think, under Narendra Modi, Muslims have been the safest. If you see Madhav Singh Solanki's rule in Gujarat, and nobody talks about it, he was the CM, many more Muslims died than even in the Gujarat riots. And let me say this categorically, Gujarat riots saw maximum convictions, intense investigation, reopening of court cases. Does anybody talk about Nelli massacre? Does anybody talk about Bhagalpur? Does anybody talk about Malyana? Does anybody talk about Hashimpura? Nobody does. Not one question is raised. And do you know how brutal they were? So I do not believe that you have to be a Muslim MLA or an MP.
I accept
so
that.
do not take me to that debate, because I do not believe in the premise of your question.
Yes.
It's
do you think a
unsubstantiated
situation would change in the near future? Do you think that situation can change?
I think the situation is changing. I think whether you read of course, I wish a lot of people are talking about, Rajendra Sachar committee is always talked about. Sri Krishna report is talked about the institutional biases there is against Muslims. But I think a lot of questions have come to the fore. And Prime Minister says it and I believe in that whether it's a Mudra Yojana or an Ujjwala Yojana or a Shauchalaya, it's for all. Why should, after all, we keep looking at ourselves as Muslims and Hindus?
Shazia,
it is very unfair.
We've completely run out of time, but we have time for maybe 2 questions. I'd like to take it from the young people. Not that you're not very young, sir, but this gentleman.
And Abhi, I'm regretting why we had Anand as my interviewer.
No. For me? No, you have to ask her
you have to ask him.
You can't
Please
ask me.
him. I'm very happy. Yes. 2 questions for him. Yes.
No, I mean, this is something which is, we don't have time enough.
But who is the Hindu and what's your definition of Hinduism?
Okay, so A, we don't have time enough for this question.
That's one question that I want you to know.
B,
Do or not, that's your choice.
I don't have that much skin in the game because I'm an atheist. But having said that, I believe Hinduism is a way of life. There are, of course, Vedas, there are books, but that I think majority of the Hindus have probably never read them or don't follow them. For example, I read Manusmriti when I was in my 30s. I didn't even know what the hell Manusmriti is until the left kind of, Manusmriti, as a counterbalance to Bible and Quran, they always quote Manusmriti. I didn't know what the hell Manusmriti is. So, Hinduism, I would say, is a way of life, and the culture and the religious nature of Hinduism has got so intertwined over the last 2000 years, good and bad aspects of it, that now it is impossible, almost impossible to wrench it out. So that. Sure, yeah, absolutely. Always willing to. Yeah. But the question to the person in the hotspot, I'm not.
Next time I'll show you my Swami Vivekananda coasters.
Of course.
As evidence.
वो 6 वाले मुझे दे देना.
हाँ 6 वाले बिल्कुल आदान प्रदान.
Shazia was very sorted. I was a junior at Jamia Mascot.
I see. Oh my God. That's when indoctrination happened. Big time. And I was made to hate RSS. Even as a Muslim, girl living in Chamanganj, Kanpur, which is actually a proper ghetto, I did not know much about RSS or was made to hate it. My parents did not inculcate any hatred towards RSS as much as Jamia Mascom.
If you think Jamia is bad, I'm from JNU. But anyway,
exactly.
What's your question?
1993, after the demolition, Jamia Mascom sponsored buses to India Gate to protest. So that apart.
And Mushirul Hassan happened during our time, my time at least, not your time.
I know that because my sister happened to be a senior.
All right, question please.
So the question is, you must have heard of Jamia agitation, Jamia Act or something. There was the road from Holy Family to Jamia is called Muhammad Ali Johar Road.
Muhammad Ali Johar Road, yeah.
And Muhammad Ali Johar was one of the founders of Jamia. Jamia Act says, Jamia Act doesn't mention the name of Maulana Muhammad Ali Johar. It says Jamia was formed with the inspiration of Gandhiji. So there was a lot of agitation, include Muhammad Ali Johar's name. There was a book written by Muhammad Yunus, Trade Fair Authority Chairman.
That's right.
Yes, Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan.
Yes, yes.
So he wrote a book, People, Passion and Politics. There he mentions, when Maulana Muhammad Ali Johar was asked a question, if you have to choose between India and Islam, what will you choose? His answer was, Maulana Muhammad Ali Johar's answer was, then I've got nothing to do with India. While I was at Moscow, there were a few friends, Muslim friends. I said, इनके लिए इतनी लड़ाई क्यों हो रही है? They said, Shailesh, what's so surprising? अगर मुझसे भी यही सवाल पूछा जाता, my answer would have been the same. And these guys are not from Azamgarh, Mayo College, Ajmer.
So I'm really sorry.
So no, I have an answer for that. I think it's a very unfair question. It's like, but can you choose between your mother and your father? Can you choose between this brother? Can you choose between sunrise and sunset? Can you choose between tea and coffee? You can't. Can you? I can't. It's like, track pants. Do you choose between your track uppers or track lowers? I mean, you need them both. So you need your inner faith. You're born in it,
Okay,
and you have
very
your country.
last question. And it
You
should be
get that? You get my answer?
It should be two.
It's a difficult
and
choice to make.
Very quick question, please, because we're totally out of time. Last.
Festival of Bharat Anand gave a 10-minute lecture on beautiful lecture that there is nothing called a good Muslim and a bad Muslim. Either you're a Muslim or you're not a Muslim. So would you want to turn to him? My feeling is you're not a Muslim, and why don't you turn to him?
No, she's a bad Muslim. She's not a.
You said there is nothing called a bad Muslim. That's the point. You said there is either.
But that's for another discussion.
And I think,
That's,
and I think it's also very, very unfair to put Muslims on the spot all the time, you're a liberal or an illiberal or a believer or a not, and how many Muslims subject you all the time. My fellow, how many times you do namaz, you don't wear, aap sar nahi dhakti hain.
Yeah.
It's such a difficult thing. Why do you want to make life so difficult all the time? Because we're constantly under a scanner. There is never a moment of peace. This is a daily jihad I go through, day after day. Do you know about my daily jihad? It is insane. So as to what I'm wearing, what I'm saying, should I say Assalamu Alaikum first or Namaskar second or Namaskar first? Am I more Indian
and
or
I
am I
dare
more
say,
Muslim?
Shazia, when you come on to TV debates, the anchors deliberately get a Maulana on the other side.
Yeah,
Just
can you imagine? I would equally, I've spoken on Khap Panchayats, on Nirbhaya. I was getting beaten up every day. So nobody talks about that, but only triple talaq they'll talk about because my identity remains. And so you all also must learn to see us as just part of a large civilization. We are Muslims and we are Hindus and we are Vaishnavais and we are Shaivais and we are atheists and we are Jats and we are Ahirs and we are Kumhars and we are Swaran and we are Dalits and we are Indians and we are part of this great legacy of Indus Valley civilization.
Namaste. We hope you enjoyed this Chitti Media content. Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.